Hi everyone. Good to be with you today. It's a beautiful day. Peter, Eric doing a fantastic job. Kathy, what a great event, a great premier event, this 2011 CCD Expo. I'm John Grou. I'm a technologist, an entrepreneur. I live up in Placerville, not too far from here in the foothills. What you see on the screen right now pretty much summarizes my talk. And there's two words in there. It's the same word. It's called convergence. And the British government must think that word's pretty important, and I do too. I think it's especially important for content creators like yourselves, moving into an accelerated future. So I'm basically going to dive in today to the topic of future convergence. The convergence of culture, of technology, of business, and creative arts. I'm going to break my talk into 5 points, 4 core points, and then an introduction to futurism. Topic number 1 is futurism. 34 years ago, I was living in the South Shore of Lake Tahoe, not too far from what you're looking at right now. And I was dating a beautiful lady named Cynthia. We would take long walks around the lake. We'd hike along Taylor Creek. And one day we decided to swim out to this little island in the middle of Emerald Bay. 34 years later, we can look back and say that it was probably inevitable that we would be married. In fact, we got married in Lake Tahoe. But there in the little tea room on Fanette Island, we had no idea what the future really held. And that's the funny thing about the future. We can take our best guess, but we have no idea. And the longer we try to look ahead in time, the harder it gets. Futurism is a sacred art practiced by a small handful of shamans, and I don't claim to be one of those shamans. But looking out the window at the tea room on Fanette Island, you can see a very holy place across the lake. It's called Cave Rock. Cave Rock is considered by the Washoe tribe to be the holiest place in Lake Tahoe. They consider it the meeting place of the present and the eternal. Chief Seattle once said, "Humankind has not woven the web of life. All things are bound together, all things are connected." Futurism is the art of seeing how everything is bound together, how everything is connected. Futurism is in fact more about seeing the profound potential of the present than it is about making predictions. My friend Richard says the future is actually a cultural illusion. So let's all buckle up. For the next few minutes, we're going to speculate on this illusion called the future, and specifically on the future of audio and media creation. But be careful, because, 50 years ago, the guys that were making predictions back then were virtually all wrong. Flying cars, underwater cities, colonies on Mars, and my favorite from 1977, there is no reason for any individual to have a computer in his home. The CEO of DEC, Ken Olsen, speaking to the Futures Society. Oops. All right, so we may not be any better at predicting the future than Ken Olsen, but we're going to give it a good shot. A megatrend. A megatrend is a large cultural shift. Once in place, it changes our collective perceptions. Those who identify and adapt early in a megatrend have the greatest chance of becoming a leader in their chosen field, and hopefully that's all of you. Keep in mind, both the pace and the number of megatrends are accelerating. If you blink, you may miss it. So here are 7 megatrends I think will have an enormous impact on everyone working in the creative arts for the next decade or two. Number 1, everything is getting smarter. Cities, electrical grids, virtual networks, homes, cars, office buildings, and as we'll see, media production and delivery. Within a few years, homes and businesses will be entirely networked with intelligent power outlets, appliances, lighting, business devices, and scale-free wireless entertainment systems. In fact, one of my patents covers just that, a safe and smart electrical receptacle and a number of appliances. In fact, we thought of this about 10 years ago, but the market's just now starting to catch up with the idea. It's called the smart grid. Number 2, Generation Y, a huge megatrend, also known as the Millennial Generation. It's today's 20 and 30-year-olds. In 10 years, Gen Y will be 1/3 of the global population, and millennials are currently the most adaptive to new technology. When we're talking about the future of the global economy, we're predominantly talking about the Millennial Generation, the people who will be consuming a lot of the media that you will be producing. Audio plays a huge role in the life of millennials. But keep in mind, we know that the lion's share of music is sourced by people under 45 years old. So in 15 years, most millennials will no longer be your prime target audience, which brings us to number 3, the Generation Z, also known as the multitasking generation. These are the kids born in the 1990s and early 2000s, and these are the digital natives. This is the demographic who will buy and steal most of the media that you create. You need to get to know them. Many of them are you and your friends. My son is a Generation Zer. He's glued to his iTouch and Facebook and YouTube and video gaming. Audio and visual content is everything in the life of a Gen Zer. Get to know them. Number 4, the rise of women in the workplace. There are currently, right now, more women students in our universities than men, and in 10 years we will graduate 3 women for every 2 men. In 10 years, nearly 1/3 of all corporate stock options will be owned by women. By 2020, in India, China, and the USA, that's nearly half the world, over 40% of the workplace will be women. This profound demographic shift will radically alter a male-dominated global culture, especially in the trends of our creative media content. Megatrend number 5, global migration and economic growth. 10 years from now, there will be a 30% increase in the number of Asian companies making up the Global 500. And the fastest growing centers of economic growth will be in places like India, Brazil, Mexico, and Eastern Europe. By 2020, many technical jobs will be paying more in China than they are in the USA. Likely, even some of you will be seeking those jobs. To understand the future of media, keep watching the global demographic shifts. Number 6, the rise of the middle class buying power will increase dramatically by 2020, with 1 billion new middle classers in China and India alone. The market for entertainment products and music in particular will grow rapidly along with the growth of the middle classers with new income to spend. Again, start thinking globally. And number 7, megatrend number 7, virtuality and convergence. There's that word again. In the next 20 years, we're going to see an avalanche of new devices that link our physical world with the virtual world. Sensors of every type imaginable, increasingly complex brain-to-machine interfaces, augmented realities, wearable computing, cloud portability, intelligent spaces, and networked everything. In many ways, this will change the way creative content is both produced and consumed, as we shall see. The creative process is accelerating towards virtual projects, collaboration, global participation, and increased socialization between individuals and corporations. Today, there are 5 billion wireless devices in use around the world. In 10 years, there will be 50 billion wireless devices in use. That's 6 wireless devices for every person on the planet. Over the next 10 years, roughly 1,000 new broadband satellites will be launched into orbit. According to Nielsen, the second most popular broadband application in 2020 will be entertainment, and audio creation will be a prime requirement. In this converging broadband space, media creators will be expected to make their content available at any time, anywhere, on any device, on demand. Moving forward, we'll continue to blur the line between service providers, content creators, and device manufacturers. I'm thinking Apple. The most creative and big picture thinkers among you will be the most successful in an increasingly converged and virtualized world. So, Megatrends. Here are the 11 words that I think best summarize the megatrends we should be watching for. Convergence, collaboration, personal virtual realities, globalization, extreme portability, hyperfragmentation, applications, intelligent spaces, networked everything, girl power, generations Y and Z. Topic number 3, the future of audio production. I spent most of my life around analog audio. In fact, I started building studio equipment when I was in high school. But the reality is, and today our company is considered one of the gold standards in professional audio worldwide. As for the future of my own products, we design and manufacture gear pretty much to last forever. The parts that do wear out, like pots and switches and electrolytic caps, can be easily replaced. Everything else is designed for well over 50 years. This is the high end. But as much as I love the analog world, the reality is that audio production continues to become more and more digital. And at the heart of most audio production today is the digital audio workstation, the DAW. Now, before we look at the future of the DAW, we need to understand something called Moore's Law. Moore's Law was named after the co-founder of Intel, Gordon Moore, who almost 50 years ago said that the number of transistors that you can fit economically on a chip, on a microprocessor, doubles roughly every 2 years. After almost 50 years, his prediction remains remarkably accurate. And it's expected to remain on target for the next 20 years. And this has profound implications for the future of audio and media in general. Since the beginning of the digital audio workstation, back in the late 1970s, our audio processing power has followed what I call Moore's Law of DAW. In our 1980 workstation, let's say we had 1 unit of audio processing power for every dollar we spent. 15 years later, in 1995, audio processing power per dollar has increased by a factor of 10,000. Moore's Law of DAW in action. Fast forward another 15 years to the present. We now have 1 billion chips on a CPU and 100 million times more audio processing power than we did in 1980. That doesn't mean we get 100 million times more work done, but it does mean that the sophistication and artistic potential of our work has increased beyond anyone's wildest imagination in 1980. Imagine, in 2030, an audio recorder with enough solid-state memory to record 256 tracks of high-res audio and video for 48 hours in a thumb drive that cost $1. Moore's Law assures us that this will happen. See, our technical limitations aren't with storage or processing. Our real limitations are interface, input, output, and human interaction. We know from Moore's Law that in 20 years we will have over 1 trillion times the audio processing power we possessed in 1980. And thanks to the video game industry, we will also, sorry, can someone grab that for me, please? We'll also have incredible new input and output, thank you, devices, which will help us to realize the full potential of our processing power and our new memory. By 2030, we'll see totally immersive haptic data entry devices in common use. Haptic devices will revolutionize media production and will define the workstation of the future. So what is haptic? Haptic is defined by realistic touch feedback. Say you put on your virtual goggles and gloves and you see a virtual mixing console in three-dimensional space in front of you. You reach out to move a fader or a switch. When you grab it, the gloves provide a sense of realistic sense of touch, but there's nothing there. Look over to one side. Here's a rack of virtual outboard processing gear and samples. It's not there, but you can touch it and you can feel it and you can make adjustments and hear what you're doing. Entirely virtual. All right, so who remembers this guy? It's the Minority Report virtual screen. And he's got his virtual gloves on with the nifty little blue LEDs on them. Okay, here's the reality. The haptic environment in 20 years will make the Minority Report interface look pretty much antiquated. The haptic working environment is a fully immersive, virtualized experience of sight, sound, and touch, and can be applied to any kind of media creation. This, I'm convinced, is the future of the digital audio workstation. It's what I call the HMW, or the haptic media workstation. The technology is actually here today, but it's very, very expensive. By 2030, I believe this is the way we'll be creating and consuming most media. We might even shorten the acronym to simply VW, or Virtual Workstation. And for the Generation Zers, you may want to skip the mixing console metaphor entirely, preferring to work with sound files and menus, but of course no mouse, no keyboard. Whatever metaphor is chosen, the control environment will become totally immersive, haptic, and three-dimensional. By 2030, we will emulate any acoustic space via headphones. You simply call up any room, and you are there, complete with high-resolution head motion detection. So when you turn your head, the sound changes in the room with you. You want a symphony orchestra in the Concertgebouw? It's no problem. You just call it up. You want a 64 Gretsch drum set in Fantasy Room A? It's no problem. You just call it up. By 2030, audio workstations will have become collaborative sharing devices. Artists, composers, engineers, and producers will work seamlessly across any hardware platform in real time. And by this time, a common audio-video file format will have emerged, somewhat like a PDF platform for media, and far beyond the limits of broadcast wave files. At some point, perhaps 2050 or 2070, artificial intelligence will have progressed to the point where a composer can actually interact with an entire artificially intelligent symphony orchestra, just like you would in a live orchestral setting, giving cues, giving pickups, and the orchestra responding. By 2050, we may even see the first virtual workstation with a brain-to-machine interface. Any music you can imagine in your head will be created in real-time acoustic space. This is not science fiction. This is coming, maybe even sooner than I'm predicting. Okay, so what about the immediate future, like, say, the next 5 years? Well, what we're going to see is an avalanche of digital audio workstations based on iPads and Android tablets, very much like this one, which is already in the market. All right, topic number 4, which I call ARR. I want to talk about a problem that's not going to go away in the future. Between now and 2020, it's estimated that artists will lose close to $1 trillion to piracy. As we move forward, there's every indication that this will only get worse. All right, we got a train coming. You might call this the 8th biggest megatrend in our future. According to Nielsen's most recent data, only 22% of the downloading public said they would always pay for downloaded content. Downloading has increased 1,000% in 5 years, but music revenues have fallen 31% year over year. And this is almost entirely due to piracy. This directly impacts your careers and will continue to eat into your livelihoods. Think about it, the reason we're here today is because media is our profession. If we can't make a living at it, it becomes a hobby, and we should probably find another career path, perhaps as an engineer on a train. Should I keep going? Is that okay? Can you hear? Okay? All right. In 2010, worldwide, there were something like 2 billion legal downloads of music, and which, by the way, about a fourth of all those downloads were processed through my software called Power, which is licensed to Apple and Avid and just about every workstation manufacturer on the planet. Many of you in the audience today use Power on a regular basis. Thank you very much. But while there were 2 billion downloads, legal downloads, there were 6 billion illegal downloads in the same period. So I'm sorry to tell you I don't have the answers, but I can tell you that everyone here should be working tirelessly to reduce content piracy in whatever ways you can. You need to get creative. Offer incentives to people to legally download your media. Give them something of extra value. Maybe early access to concert tickets or a coupon of some kind. Access to a special website that has unique content that's not available on the pirate sites. Or monetize your work via advertising when people download your music. Be creative. The bottom line reality is that the pirates aren't going away. This means that if we want to reduce piracy and survive as content creators, it's up to us. It's not up to the government. It's not up to the RIAA. It's up to us to redouble our creativity and reimagine a creative process where everyone is incentivized to play fair. Last topic, number 5, maximizing your future. In the past, we had clear distinctions between talent, record companies, concert promoters, recording studios, and music distribution channels. But in the next 15 years, we'll see many of these distinctions converge together into what futurist Marshall McLuhan called meta media. Meta is a Greek word meaning beyond or after, the process of change. Media includes all creative content, including audio. Smart media companies are converging all these different aspects of media creations into new kinds of seamless organizations. And it's not clear what these organizations will look like 15 years from now, but we can see the trends emerging. And we're also realizing that working in the convergence era is as much about unlearning old media as it is about converging. You can no longer simply be siloed as, say, an audio engineer and expect to thrive in the coming metamedia world. The more meta skills you can develop in your career path, the more integral and indispensable you will become to the new media world. My suggestions: if you're an audio engineer, learn more about music production. If you're a music producer, get better at your instrument and play more music. If you're more of a pure media geek, step out of your cocoon into the world of business and marketing. If you're a media teacher, immerse yourself and your students as much as possible into the world outside the academic walls. If you're an audio student, Spend every waking hour learning not just about your core curriculum, but keep trying to understand the bigger picture and your place in it. If you're into sales, spend time developing your artistry and creativity. And if you're an artist, well, you basically need to do everything. Release your work in as many formats and as many places as possible. Engage in forums, get involved with chat rooms, attend conferences like this one, do interviews, start your own virtual conference. Why not? Create flash events, be transparent, give free concerts, stay connected to your fans. It's what they want. Give them access to you. Answer your emails, update your website, keep blogging, and keep tweeting. Because what we're really trying to do here is see the big picture. And that big picture will not come into focus until we've learned how to harness the converging trends coming at us right now and in the near future. Thank you very much.